Hello everyone. Good afternoon. Um, Please let me know if you're able to hear me well. Yes, that's very good. Thank you. Thank you for the confirmation. And yes, maybe we can wait a few minutes just to make sure that just a couple minutes that everyone who is joining us is here, if that's okay with you guys. All right. So thank you for joining me today. I'll just wait a little bit more and then we can start. While we are waiting, maybe would you like to tell me what kind of activities do you do on your daily job? Like, do you work with architecture or engineering? Are you a designer? So that would be interesting to know as well. Yeah, as an architect, yes. Architects, engineers, yes. Sustainability, interior designer, construction, professor, very good. Interior architect, nice. Net zero carbon consultant, nice. Very good. Yes, Katarina is there too. Nice. All right, very good. Well, thank you all. I think that we have waited a bit enough, so we can get started. So thank you again for joining me today. My name is Carolina Aittokallio. I'm a business developer in One Click LCA, and as some of you, also an architect. Today we are going to talk about how to incorporate lifecycle assessment into your designs. And well, I will just share my screen. So we will have at first the presentation, and then we will be able to also talk a little bit more about it, and I'll be able to answer your questions at the end of the presentation. So let me just share my screen with you. Yes. All right. So please let me know if you're able to see my screen. Researcher, also architect. Very good. Yes. Okay, good. So without further ado, let's start. So how to incorporate lifecycle assessment into your design process. So first, we are going to talk a little bit about One Click LCA, just so that you guys have some context about our company, who we are, what do we do. Then we will go through the lifecycle assessment process and also why is it important to do it. For the third topic, we will talk about the influence of design in lifecycle assessment, and then we will see how to incorporate the lifecycle assessment also into your design process. And finally, we will see the LCA for buildings with the help of One Click LCA and how our features and our add-ons can also be helpful to you in this purpose. We at One Click LCA, our mission is to power the makers of a zero carbon future, and we do this through the different types of solutions that we have. So we have software solutions for building, so for building LCA, for LCC, for carbon accounting as well, also for infrastructure, for manufacturing, so for products as well. So we are able to also help manufacturers. and to check not only their emissions, but also to issue EPDs, and also for corporate greenhouse gas reporting. We are the world's leading construction and manufacturing LCA software, present in more than 130 countries worldwide, offering all global data. So all the publicly available EPDs that have passed our quality test have been integrated to our database, making it the largest construction and manufacturing database in the world. We are able also to integrate with more than 15 different types of software, going from Excel to Rhino, Grasshopper, Revit, ArchiCAD, and others. And we are a Finnish company based here in Helsinki with more than 20 years of existence, and as of today, around 150 people in our staff. We're able to connect the entire industry. So all the companies that you see here, they are our customers. And how do we connect the entire industry? So manufacturers, for example, would come to us wanting to work on their products designs in terms of being more eco-friendly, or if they would like to issue EPDs, for example, and we are able to help them with this. Then the EPDs will be used by engineers and architects when they are doing the specifications of their projects. They will also be used as well as the projects done by architects and engineers for builders, investors, and institutions when they are working in their own building portfolios for financial purposes as well, and for certification purposes too. We're able to help our customers to improve at every project phase, sharing and connecting data through the different sets of tools and features that we have. And to sum up, we are a global platform with data and tools for compliance. We're able to make carbon easier to understand and to act on. We offer results not only in numeric tables, but in a different series of graphs, so that our customers are also able to pass the message forward to their customers who might not be so familiar with the LCA, so making it easier to understand. So let's talk a little bit about the life cycle assessment process. To start, we need to understand why is it important to talk about it. The reason is because the construction segment is responsible for around 40% of the carbon emissions in the world. And it's a sector that has been growing a lot lately, and it will continue to grow. So basically, if we continue to build like we have been doing, and how we are doing today still, we will double the global building stock in the next 40 years. And what does this mean? It means like we are building a New York City every month from here to the next 40 years, which is a lot. So to avoid this, there has been a series of events and meetings all over the world, but I will give the context of Europe right now because it's the context that has been working very much with the purpose of setting standards, setting also directives and goals for emissions reductions. So the European Green Deal is a climate pact that has been set in motion in 2020 by the European Commission to review the laws on climate merits and to introduce also new legislation on circular economy, building renovation, biodiversity, farming, and innovation. Circular economy for the construction segment is something that is yet to be regulated, so it's great that they are looking into it. And by doing this, they also have changed the targeted emissions reductions that before were from at least 50% to now at least 55% by 2030 compared to the emission levels from the 90s. If we are able to succeed in this, the final goal will be that Europe becomes the first climate neutral continent in the world by 2050. To reach this goal, in terms of building regulations and energy performance of building directives for buildings, we will need to disclosure carbon footprint of all new buildings over 2,000 square meters by 2027. By 2030, we need to disclosure carbon footprints of all new buildings. Doesn't matter the size of the building. And we will also need to start accounting for energy performance of buildings as mandatory as well. Some national regulations in Europe are already requiring for life cycle assessment to be conducted for emitting a building permit. So basically, this is something that will only spread to other countries where this is not yet mandatory. So it will become at some point. And not only it will become mandatory, and that's why we need to do it, but we need to also have the conscience that it needs to become a common practice for not only the European territory because of the regulations, but also for the world because of the current changes that we have been going through. So let's talk now about how the life cycle assessment is done and what's included in it, now that we know why is it important to perform it. So the sources of embodied carbon across the construction life cycle, they are divided in 4 groups, starting with the A, which is the A stage. So we have from A1 to A5, in which we will account for the extraction of raw material, transport to the manufacturing facility, the manufacturing process, then the transport to the building and installation. Then we have the B phase, in which we will account for the use stage. So here we would be talking about the use, the maintenance, repair, replacement, and refurbishment. Then we have the C phase, in which we would be talking about the end of the life cycle. So everything about demolition and the construction, transport to waste handling facility, the waste processing, and disposal. But as I mentioned earlier, we have 4 phases, and also the B phase here is lacking one thing, which is the operational substages. So in the operational stages, we have here the B6, which is the operational energy use, and B7, which is the operational water used. And these also need to be accounted for. And finally, we have the D phase, which represents the benefits and loads beyond the system boundary. So everything that will be used for reuse, recovery, recycled, they need to be accounted here in the B stage. And they will actually have a negative value, so they will be offsetting the carbon that is emitted in the other stages, the previous stages. So let's now talk about the influence of design in the life cycle assessment process. To talk about the influence of design, first let's have in mind the phases of design. Here they are divided into 8 phases. And this is according to the RIBA stages from the RIBA Plan of Work template. But basically, we have here the 0, which is the strategic definition, and the 1, which is the preparation and brief. So these 2 phases are the phases in which we are talking to our customer, we are assessing their needs, we are talking about the program and the how will each part of the building be connected, how will they be used, and so on. So then we are collecting the data that will serve as the guide for us to actually start the project. From there, we start with the concept design, in which we also start to work with masses of the buildings so that we can create the first the beginning of the first proposal, and then the spatial coordination. So after these are approved by the customer, we can then move forwards to the technical design and send it forth for manufacturing and construction and getting everything related to building permits and so on, so that the building is actually built, also including all the details that need to be done for the execution of the building. Finally, the handover after the construction and the use. So in which stage here can we start talking about life cycle assessment? And I will tell you, we can start from zero. We can start from zero because when we are already talking to the customer about their needs, we can also be mindful about possible choices that we can present the customer with when it comes to materials, finishing materials, construction materials, type of structure of the house or building or warehouse or whatever it is. And from the other phases, we can just develop it with different sets of tools and features. And this is very important because early decisions, they have the highest impact and they have the lowest cost. So here, if we see in this graph, we are just seeing here basically the influence on the emissions in the project. So we see here the strategy phase, and this is when the reduction potential is at its highest because we don't have yet any decisions set in stone. So we don't have any decisions in terms of how will the project look like, what are the materials, what is the structure, who are the suppliers, and so on. So all of these, as the project moves forward and the different stages of the project also moves forward, these decisions, they start to be made, and then it will just become a bit harder to change them. So the earlier we start working with life cycle assessment, the better. Here we see also some of the other integrations that we have with other software like Rhino, Grasshopper, in the concept design stage and Revit in the detail design, but you can use these integrations at any time. This is just a matter of organization because this is usually at the stage of the project that each one of these different software are used. And how are you going to differentiate from others? So basically, performing early design lifecycle assessment, I would say, because with these, you are able to minimize the environmental impacts and innovate on your offering because you can already include it as part of your offer. Let's say if the customer doesn't want to do a certification project, for example, at least you can do the carbon footprint of their project. You can also evaluate the product's efficiency and quality and make more informed choices. And why is this important? Because if you have products that have a better efficiency and quality, you are also working with the environmental comfort of the home or office or whatever it is of the space, basically. So when you are working with the comfort of the space, you can reduce on other ends, for example, electricity. So you would be spending less electricity to keep the temperature comfortable if you have materials with better efficiency. You would be reducing the maintenance and repair and replacement if you choose materials with better quality. So these also influence not only in the life cycle assessment emissions, but also influence on the customer's spending. So they can actually spend less if in the house and long term as well if the LCA is done beforehand. It also influences manufacturers to improve in their products because to do life cycle assessment, you need product information. And if you have the information, the EPD, the Environmental Product Declaration of the specific products that you want to specify, then the more you have the information of the products that you are actually putting in the house, the better the assessment is. So it also pushes manufacturers to disclosure their environmental impacts as well of their products. And if you combine it with life cycle costing, you can have also more sustainable projects for both environmental and financial perspectives, like I mentioned before. And there are many more other benefits as well. So in terms of the design, where should we have our focus? So we should have our focus in the early planning and the early design phase, because as I mentioned earlier, this is where you still have all your options open to decide in terms of how the project is, the structure, the materials, the suppliers, and so on. So the main focus needs to be in the beginning of the project, so that you have better chances of decarbonizing it. It's also important to shape the project before you build it, because of the carbon reduction potential. So of course that if you build nothing, then your footprint, let's say, or your emissions, they will be the best ones possible because there is nothing there. But then if you build clever and efficiently, then you also increase your chances of having a better carbon reduction. It's important also to think of the material used for the design. So choose this in the site and use materials above the ground, because then if you build above the ground, you reduce your emissions because you don't have to do excavations and contain walls and these and so on. And also some kind of underground infrastructure. So it's not needed if the building is above the ground. You can also focus on building more for people instead of for any other use. For example, building for cars, or building for something that will not be used so frequently as well. So it's also important to shape the efficiency. So design more compact, massing. Of course, the shapes need to be played with, because of course it's a part of the design process as well, and it's a part of the work's identity, especially for architects and designers that have their kind of like brand in also the shapes of their projects. So it's important to have that, but also be mindful of the masses as well, and how they would be impacting in the emissions. So in terms of the material use, we need to pay attention also for the material used for service life. And why is that? Let's say if we have a material that will last over 60 years, then it will probably last over the building's lifetime, according to the standards that we would be doing the LCA for. So let's say that then you would be only counting here with only one A4, which is the manufacturing stage. Only one A1 to A3, which is the manufacturing stage, and then the A4 for transportation on the building, installation, and so on, and then the demolition. But then if you would be having a material that lasts only 40 years, then you would be having at least one replacement. So you would be doubling these phases of manufacturing, transportation, installation, and demolition, and so on. If you would have a material that lasts 25 years, you would be doing this 3 times. So basically, having materials that last longer also help to minimize the impact of your designs. Also about materials, it's good to prioritize materials that can do more, materials that can produce energy, that can store carbon, and that can avoid waste. So materials that can be recycled, renewed, or reused. Also about supplier sourcing, like I mentioned earlier, it's good to do some kind of benchmarking and having into consideration the emissions of the suppliers. And it's also good to do it not just for your country, but also neighboring countries, because you can compare what others have been doing also in their own countries, and have an idea of how you can improve too. And with this, you can also have the advanced material comparison, in which you are comparing not only the emissions, but you can also compare costs. And you can do this by selecting materials of your choice as well. So you can leverage on the design optimization to improve on your projects, and you can also obtain certifications. So even though you would be working with design, because you can incorporate LCA into your design, you would also be able to perform certification projects, because many of them, they work with the idea of improving on the building. So as you would be doing this already for your design process, like doing the LCA from the beginning to end, then you can also leverage it to have certifications on your projects. Now let's talk about LCA for buildings with the help of One Click LCA. So how can we help for LCA for buildings? So we are powering the global architecture, engineering, and construction leaders to decarbonize with our tools. And here we can have a closer look on our different kinds of customers in the architecture, engineering, consulting area. So all of these, again, are our customers. And from these, you can already know some of them. So how do we do this? So first of all, we can create the baseline using minimum data. And what is this minimum data? It's basically the gross floor area, the country in which the project will be located, the building type. Is it a school? Is it an office building? Is it an apartment building? So you can choose. And then also the number of floors. So with this minimum data, you can generate refined options. You can also set, for example, additional optional choices like the assessment scope, if there are underground floors, if they are heated or unheated, what are the soil conditions, and the type of structure as well. So you could have, for example, a building with steel structure, and you can even compare it to a building with timber structure, for example. And you can also use templates. And how do the templates work? So you can predefine a set of materials for different types of buildings that you want to work with. So let's say if you are working on a school, like I mentioned earlier, you can have, like, for example, school. I want for the school that the wall has this type of insulation, that the floor has this type of flooring, that the cladding is like this or like that. So you can predefine the materials for your projects. And then when you do the assessment, you just choose that template and it's applied to it. And you can compare options before drawing a single line as well. So all of this that I'm talking about is included in our Carbon Designer 3D add-on, in which with just basic information, you can do a quick assessment even before you start drawing your project. And how is that helpful? It's helpful because you can see the pain points of your project, where they would be, and you can focus on tackling them as well. So here, for example, we see that the first one here has basically the horizontal structures that can be tackled here because they are red. So we see that they have really high emissions. On the project here to the right top, we see that the walls have high emissions to the external walls and floors as well. So we know that these are parts of the building that we need to be more mindful of when we do our specifications and also for the structure type. So when you find also the design data pain points, when you find the design pain points as well, you can also find them not only with the Carbon Designer 3D, like I mentioned earlier, but at the results, you can find a list of the most contributing materials. So for carbon emissions. So here with this list, we see also the percentage of the emissions of the project that they are responsible for. So you know that, okay, this first material here is something that I really need to look into a better alternative if I want to reduce the emissions. And you can also click here and show sustainable alternatives. This green text here, right after the percentage of the emissions, and then it will show you a list of all the other possible similar products that you can work with based on a material benchmark. So here we see that this material, for example, is number 615 out of 697. And then we see here the material number 9 being a suggestion, for example. So that's an interesting thing to look at and to know, so that we can make better choices for our projects. You can also compare different projects along the design phases. So here I have, for example, the CD3D, which is on the design phase number 2 from the RIBA design phases. And then I have the Revit import here, which is in the design number 4, design phase number 4. So it's a bit more advanced design, a bit more detailed. And the tendency is that, yes, it can increase in terms of carbon the more detail you have. But at the same time, it doesn't have to. So it doesn't have to increase in all categories. So we see here, for example, for the abiotic depletion, we have a huge reduction here. From the design, there is more detailed, and also for other impact categories as well. And you can also create your own LCA report at the end of it. So you can, when you have your results ready, there is the possibility of clicking on the More Actions tab button, and then clicking on Generate the Word report, and then you have a template of an LCA report that already gathers the data from your own project and have it ready for you to present to your customers. Basically, this is the theoretical part, but I would also like to show you how it works in practice. And we will have a quick look at the software. And then we will come back to the upcoming free trainings. So let me just now share the, just one moment. Let me share now the window with the projects that I would like to show you. And then I will take your questions at the end of the presentation. So yes, here we have a project, and at first we see here the embodied carbon benchmark that compares it to similar projects in the same location. And then we see that this here has huge emissions, so we need to check what is going on with this one here. Actually, I will select here this design because it might have to do with the years from this design here that I need to check. But yes, so this now is looking more plausible. So yeah. So here we have the embodied carbon benchmark, and here we see that the amount of carbon emissions is 426 kilos of carbon per square meter, and here we see that it's in the B classification if compared to similar office in the similar buildings in the same location. So this is an office in Poland, so we have here the benchmark for it. And then we have the embodied carbon by life cycle stage, in which we see the emissions of carbon per life cycle stage. We see here that something like a fifth of the emissions are coming from the replacement. So this is something that we can definitely improve on. So we should look at materials with a life cycle, with a lifetime that is longer than the materials that have been selected for this project. And we see also the embodied carbon by structure, in which we see the parts of the building that are responsible for the most emissions. So we see here the vertical structures and horizontal structures are the ones that we need to pay more attention to. Here we have, as I mentioned earlier, two designs. One is the CD 3D, which is from Carbon Designer 3D. And the other one is the Revit import from the Revit project. And we have two tools. We have the levels lifecycle assessment according to the EN 15804 plus A1, which it was the norm in place until 2019, and also according to the EN 15804 plus A2. And why do we have both of them? Because the EPDs of the manufacturers, they are still valid for 5 years. So although this norm was in place in 2019, many manufacturers are still updating their EPDs. So because of it, we need to have these two tools available until the EPDs that are still valid can be until like 2024, 25, or 26. They can still be updated to the new norm, and then this is the tool that will be used by then. That's also why there is a difference here in the results from both of them, because not all the APDs have been yet updated to both norms. Yes, so let's have a look at the Carbon Designer 3D and see how we can work with it. So if I choose here, for example, for the levels lifecycle assessment tool, the plus A1 tool, I can create a design, and I will call it August 8th, 2023. And I can here select the reference building. So let's say there are different reference buildings for different locations, but let's say we can choose here the international reference building just to have it. And we can have also here for 60 years, and we have the gross floor area of 3,000 square meters. So if we can continue, we can select also the building type. So office, cultural building, hotel, apartment building, and so on. So this is an office. So let's move forward with it. We can select also the building parts. So we have here the foundations, the ground slab, structure, enclosure, finishes, and surfaces included. And we can choose the number of above ground floors. So let's say if we want this to be like an 8 floors building, and we can choose the number of underground heated and unheated floors. And we can choose also the building structure. So if we want concrete in situ, if we want precast concrete, steel frame, timber, and so on. So let's choose the concrete in situ. Piling length for visualization, and we can also choose the elements to the foundation as well. So soil stabilization and the secant piling wall. So let's move forward, and we have here our building. So this is what it would look like. And then we have also the height, width, depth, and so on. So all the building dimensions here that if we want, we can change. So it's possible to edit them. But let's say if we are happy, we can move forward and just calculate the areas. And after we calculate the areas, we have the building structures areas. So foundations, ground slabs, structures, and so on. We can also edit these if we would like to. But let's say we would be happy with it. So then we move forward. And here is where we can set up the template if we want to. So we can do a template beforehand to assign certain materials to certain areas of the building. So here we have, for example, some templates like in situ concrete for 5-floor office building, my private demo template, and so on, some different templates. So you don't have to select a template, but you can do it if you want to. But if you don't want to, then the software will just make the choices for you. So I will let the software make the choices for me, and I'm submitting now my design to be assessed. This should take a little time to be done, but while then I can have a quick look here in the chat and answer just some questions. So Hans is asking, what building certifications are being used and accepted in Finland? So Finland has its own type of regulation, and it uses the ympäristöministeriö tool. And this is mainly now being done as like a standard for Finnish buildings. But if you want to have some certifications like LEED International or BREEAM International, then you can also do it. Many of the shopping malls here in Finland have these kind of certifications, from what I have seen, and some offices as well. Then we have also some questions here from Harsh. When are you planning to introduce a dark theme in your tool? That's an interesting question. I'm not sure of that, and I haven't never heard this question before, but it's a good one. Yeah, I'm not sure about it, but I can definitely pass the question forward and ask our product team about it. And Sean Tubb is asking, will we be able to download the slides to review after the event? Yes, so the slides and the video should be sent to you automatically at the end of the presentation. So yes. And Hans is asking, is there going to be a better integration for ArchiCAD soon? Well, hopefully, yes. We are working on it. We already improved the previous ArchiCAD integration, but we will keep on working on that. And Yamila is asking, is One Click LCA available in all continents? Yes, it's available worldwide. So, okay, now we have our building here. So I will go back to it, and then we can continue with the questions. So yes, this is the quick assessment of our building. So we have it here with the carbon footprint by element, and we have here our beautiful building as we did it earlier. We have also the carbon view, so I can activate the carbon view to see the areas that are responsible for the most emissions. And as we see here, the external walls and floor finishes have a lot of the emissions going on here for them, as the graph also shows us. And here we can also see the carbon footprint by material, by classifications, and total. So by element is very good because it shows the area of the building, in my opinion at least. Then we see also here the building materials that have been chosen for this building. So we see here the foundations, the elements, and so on. We can see the unused resources, and we can also change them or substitute them or allocate, like I want 50% of this, 50% of that, and so on. So you just need to click here and edit foundations to do this. You can also compare with other designs, so up to 4 simultaneous designs. So let's say instead of having this big building, I want to have a small one. So then here it is. And let's just see some different options so that we see how they would look like. And then you have also here the comparison. And yeah, we have some different ones. But once you are happy with your design, all you need to do is save design to project. You can choose an existing design or create a new one. And then you can also choose to overwrite the existing data or merge with the existing data. And then when you click save, it will take you to let me just save this to the project. It will take you to the initial page of the project. So now let me just save this here, and then we can go back to our yes, initial page. And then here we have again, so now we have a new building. So this building is actually not as good as the option that we thought of before. So this is why it's good to see and compare the different options. So now we actually have materials with much lower lifetime. So our replacement here has increased, and as a consequence of it, our carbon emissions also have increased here. That before we were on the B here classification, now we are on the F. So this is also very interesting to see, and then we can also compare it here. Let's just go back now to our slides. And I just want to share with you that we have the upcoming free trainings for both construction LCA and environmental product declaration. So for building LCA and for product LCA. And they are upcoming now in September and October. So I have the links for both of them here, and you will receive this presentation as well, so you can also check them out. But if you want to already have a look at them, they are in our One Click LCA Academy website. And yes, with this, I would like to thank you for your presence and your questions already, so for during the presentation. And I want to ask if you would like to ask me any more questions, and I can take them right now. So yes, I see here Hans says kiitos, ole hyvä. Yes, and let me see some questions here. Yes, so Sean is asking, how accurate would a model be if inputting components for an existing building undergoing major renovation? For example, an historic masonry building receiving new windows, new roof, all the interior finishes being replaced. So basically, you can do it. Well, the model, as you would do for the architecture, the project. So if you would be doing it, the model, like for actually doing all the documentation that you need, so the legal project that would be submitted for the grant of the building permit. And then what would change mainly is that instead of having the materials in the list just as they are, there is a place there where you can click on reused, that they are being reused. So then it will not consider the A1 to A3 phase from the materials of the existing building, but then you would need to account for them as well. So you can do a model as if it's a new building in terms of the details of like what materials are there and so on. But then the only difference is that you would need to click on the reused button so that the A1 to A3 phases are disconsidered from the calculation for the existing parts of the building. Karan is asking questions. Suppose we have a local EPD available in our region, which is not updated in One Click LCA EPD database. Can we add it? If yes, how? So yes, you can add it. If for some reason it's not in the database, then you have two options. You have the option for doing the request for it to be added to our database, and then it can take around 2 weeks' time, usually, for our data team to do the input of the EPD in the database. And if, for example, there's an issue with quality or something like this, or what you have is not really an EPD, but instead it's a manufacturer's information, but you still want to add it to your project, you can do the input of private data, which is a feature available in our expert subscription. So that's also possible to do. And Terisha is also asking, how are non-locally sourced materials used on a project considered in the LCA tool? Okay, that's a good question. So if you have a material that you are importing from another country, you would use the material as like, for example, manufacturer-specific material. Then you would choose that from the options from the EPDs, or you can also do the private data, for example, like I just mentioned earlier. And then you would set the location for the manufacturing of it for the private data if needed. But anyways, if you can also select from material from our database, from manufacturer-specific material, then you would need to account also for the transportation. So would you have a trailer, transportation, train, ship, plane, whatever, that would bring the material from outside of your country to your country? And then from there also to the building and so on. So you would need to account for all the steps in the transportation also. Karan says, thanks. You are very much welcome. Thank you for asking. And I will wait a bit more to see if anyone else has any other questions. Karan's asking also if the recording will be available. Yes, at the end of the event, the recording and the also the slides should be sent to you automatically. But if you also have any questions about it, or if you don't receive or something like this, you can also contact us at hello@oneclicklca.com, and then we can help you to get access to it. Tarisha says, thank you. You are very much welcome. Yes, do you have any other questions? I can wait a bit more. But if you think of other questions also later on that you would like to ask, I will leave also here our contact information, both general information and my own information, so you can also contact me directly. And let me just here, yes. And well, I guess if there aren't any more questions, I will just now end the webinar. And I want to say thank you all for joining me today. Thank you so much for your questions also. It's great to have questions and to interact with you and to be able to help you with life cycle assessment, as it's also our mission to power the makers of a zero carbon future. So it's great to be able to pass this information along to you. All right. Okay, so thank you and have a great week ahead. Until next time.